Yeah, yeah.
Hold on. Interesting life. And we're live. Welcome everyone back to the Anything Goes podcast, episode number 15. I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Mr. Zacchariah. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, King. How about you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Um,
Good to hear.
Good to hear. You know, you're a guy who's dabbled into the world of Twitch, online streaming. They might
Hmm.
promote yourself before we start the show.
Yeah, sure. I mean, online streaming, content creation in general. I've got a YouTube channel. I'm in the process of, putting my first video. But for the time being, y'all can find me at twitch.tv/Zacchariah. Right now, I stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays between 8 p.m. I'd say our time zone is Atlantic, 8 p.m. and midnight. Right now, it's mainly gameplay, but, hopefully in time I could expand to things, maybe live art sessions, who knows what else. You can also find me on Instagram at Zacchariah underscore and Twitter at Zacchariah.
Okay, I know you're saying you're in the process of creating your YouTube channel. Do you mind to explain what will be the focus of your YouTube channel, or you haven't decided that as of yet?
I haven't 100% decided on that, but I like to think that I will focus on topics that interest me because more than anything else, more than I think capturing the widest net of an audience, I would want to focus on items that interest me and then can attract the kind of audience that we can share in that passion with. So, gaming, obviously, the first. I'm actually working on my first video right now, not as regularly as I'd like, but I'm recording footage for my first video, which is actually, I guess you can call it a retrospective, but it's not really an old game. But it's a video about Mirror's Edge Catalyst, a favorite game of mine. So I'm
Okay.
working on that right now, and then maybe I can also get to talking about pro wrestling, MMA, any topics that interest me. Maybe even a little bit of true crime. I'm really big into that. So whatever comes to mind,
Yeah.
but it hasn't quite started as yet. So in due time.
Before we get into the show, have you watched? Did you watch Fight last night, or you didn't get a chance to watch it?
I didn't watch the fight card, but I saw. Well, sorry. Let me rephrase that. I didn't watch the fights, but I saw some highlights, and I'm aware of the results. So I have an idea of how UFC at 259 last
Yeah,
night.
259. Yeah.
Of how 259 went last night. Yeah.
All right, I gotta watch it because I was just tired last night. I just went straight in my bed, and
Did you hear about the DQ?
yeah, I did. So and then I was a little disappointed. So it was like maybe it's a good thing I didn't watch it last night.
Yeah.
My head would be a little hot, but you know,
Yeah. Like I saw it happen, and it's honestly baffling, like how it happened. But I won't go into too much detail. But like you said, it's disappointing as hell.
it's very disappointing. But
Yeah.
we gotta start the show off, and the first topic of tonight's show would be internet censorship.
Oh boy.
And oh, this is a tough one. And I brought my favorite lefty. I call my favorite lefty on. You know,
I guess you could put me there safely. Yeah.
my favorite, very opinionated guy, but also very calm and open-minded guy at the same time. So
I appreciate
I
that.
love hearing his opinions on stuff. This topic has been circled around the internet for a while, dating back to a lot of mass shootings that happened in the states. Um, Even back to what's his the guy's name that shot the church up. Hold on, I can see in front of me. Right now.
Dylan Roof.
Dylan Roof, when he was part of a hate group. But in recent times, due to the Capitol insurrection, people plotting to the siege on the Capitol, it's been called for a greater need of internet censorship. It's also being brought up due to the CV that's occurring and people putting out quote unquote misinformation. And, you know, I leave it open minded for everyone. I want to ask you, do you think we need some form of internet censorship? Or do you think it's slightly overblown? Just at this point in time, we're having people putting out conflicting information or creating hate groups, but anytime it will disappear, or this is something that you think needs to happen? We need some form of censorship on the internet.
I think to use the word censorship is not the right way to go about it because first off, people misunderstand what censorship in its classic sense is. Censorship is when government or, let's use government as a blanket term, they silence dissent or they silence any opposing opinions of the people to their own. A lot of what's happening right now isn't censorship because it's not acted upon by the government. So when you've got like Twitter and Reddit shutting down these accounts of white supremacists, when you've got Amazon basically taking away Parler's access to their AWS, their Amazon Web Services, so they can't operate their website over that. That's classically not censorship, at least based on the American Constitution, even though we're not American, but based on that, because
Aren't we though?
these are private businesses making decisions based on how they want their businesses to function. Having said that, I I believe, like you, think that people should have the right to say what they want. I believe that people should be able to, if they don't agree with government opinion, if they have dissent, I believe that's especially important to get out in the public. But as much as I want people to be able to give their opinion, to there has to be a line drawn when it stops being opinion and starts being harmful. Something like hate speech, whether it's against a certain ethnic group, against a certain protected class, against an entire gender. You've got incels, and a lot of what they do is hate speech against women. You've got hate speech against the LGBTQ plus community. So if you want to say that I'm pro censorship, if you really want to minimize it down to that point, then I guess I am to an extent. I want people to be able to have their opinions, but when you've got people touting the results of the American election, how I believe that you agree with me. The election, as much as we want to be skeptical about government, the election was decided. It was done, and
Well, we know Joe Biden was going to win the election from the jump, so I don't want to see how this could.
I don't think it was so certain. But let's both say that we knew the election was decided. Joe Biden was the president. The fact that it's still being touted, it's going against the objective fact that he has won the election, and as we saw in January, a very harmful and even in some cases lethal extent. So when it starts bringing about harm and it starts becoming like propaganda and hate speech, that's when the line needs to be drawn. It's just, with a lot of things, I believe it should be decided on a per circumstance basis. You can't just say all speech like this must be silenced, all speech like this must be accepted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my take on it, that I feel like it's a more delicate issue than can just be decided yes or no.
Yeah. I think it's something as we go along. I think we will know where the line should be drawn. I think, like you, I think we need to have open forums of discussion, and that's what I do appreciate. Even if it's certain people, like quote unquote the incels, I don't agree with their opinion, but I think maybe we need to hear where they're coming from, and maybe we might think that they're horrible people. It may just be they may have some horrible experiences in their life, or maybe their attitude sucks, and maybe there's a way that we could talk to them, reach them, and say, hey, your problem you might think is X, but maybe Y. And I think common grounds like that, we need to have those open discussions. But my fear comes in when people are gathering online and then you want to incite violence. Where, as you said, whether it's the LGBT community, whether it's the black community, Indian community, Asian. I don't know if maybe people attack white communities. That's a possibility as well. And
Absolutely.
yeah, because I've seen some people say some horrible stuff about white people, and
Because sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and I think as we go along, I agree it should be a case by case basis. But I do not want the first thing to just be an automatic ban hammer. I think we need to actually go in and dive deep into the issue before we start banning left, right, and center. Because I think if we swing the ban hammer too early, we may not understand what happens, and then it might cause more anger, and people start spreading off into other groups, other sites that we might see a Facebook group. We know Facebook. We all know Instagram. We know Reddit. But then there's these wacko sites like 4chan and 8chan and all these other sites now that harbor a lot of these toxic beliefs.
Yeah.
So I think maybe a downright ban hammer on the more open platforms, but leave people to go and create these more fringe underground websites where the toxicity builds, and then when these attacks happen, we don't see them coming. So
Like it kind of festers.
right. So I'm kind of more of a let's investigate first, and then we decide what to do, whether we swing the ban hammer or not.
Having said that, can you think of examples where you think the ban hammer, so to speak, has been brought down too fast? Because I like to think about certain, let's use Reddit as an example, because it's such a wide spanning platform. It covers literally everything, more or less. like when they had subreddits that were eventually closed down, were eventually banned, like the Donald or
like
in
patching.
r/incels. Even years before this was talked about as regularly as it is now. I think about 4 years ago there was actually a subreddit called r/fat people hate,
Right.
where it was literally just fat people shaming. It was gross, and it was a pretty, how do I put this? It was a pretty notorious, pretty well known subreddit. I can't remember like if they had membership in the hundreds of thousands or millions, but it was notable enough that when it eventually got shut down, people took notice. I think it was the first like really big
Subreddit.
closure of a subreddit. And so, like you're saying, what they did was they went to another platform that's called Vote, VOAT, which I think was meant to be like just like Reddit, but with much less moderation. But last I heard about Vote, which was a few months ago, because it seems like a lot of eventually closed subreddits moved over to Vote. It seemed like you said, it ended up festering this toxic community of all the basically the rejects. What was it? Basically became like the island of misfit children. Like
Wow.
all the rejected subreddits, all the toxic ones, they all went to this one place, and like you said, they festered, and it became this hub of just all around just bad attitudes and terrible perspectives and racism and hate. And so like yeah, that is the frightening flip side of, well, shutting down one place may lead to them all gathering in another place, may make it worse. But sorry, back to the question I posed to you. Can you think of like somewhere where you feel someone has been struck down or banned, whether it's Reddit or Twitter or Instagram? In your observation, has someone been taken down without due process?
All right, this is one that is slightly controversial. 'Cause I do
Uh-huh.
not like this guy. I don't like what he
Okay.
stands for, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it was wrong to get rid of him. And
Uh-huh.
you know you don't like this guy. I think he's a
I mean, you
comedian.
might need to be a little clearer than that.
He goes by the name of Alex Jones. I can't
Ah,
stand this
yes,
guy.
of course. One and only. Mm-hmm.
But my problem is,
Mm-hmm.
I think what that would lead to in the future is when
Mm-hmm.
people speak against the government. And I don't believe every conspiracy, but I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes people there are things that go on behind the scenes, not because some evil plot, because of simple cold hard cash.
Yeah.
And I think when people speak against those things,
Mm-hmm.
it's caused them to automatically shut them down because they
Mm-hmm.
don't go with the quote unquote okey doke. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, he said things that I 100% disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
But my problem came when you shut him down will lead to other people who have legitimate concerns, who legitimately care about the people of their country. Because not
Mm-hmm.
everything's the United States of America. There are countries such as in Africa and Nigeria where there's actual
Mm-hmm.
corruption happening. And those people
Of
cannot
course.
speak out. And
Mm-hmm.
this, and I think this is the catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, him, I don't like him, but I don't agree with the ban of him off of the internet.
Do you believe it was done like too quickly though, without due diligence, without due process? Because Alex Jones was around for a long time.
Yeah, he was
He
for
was around for a long time.
yeah, and
So I
I think he went
wonder.
to I think he kind of descent into madness, into the, but I still think they should have
Mhm.
okay. What I like seeing was I mean he's kind of crazy, but I've never seen an open dialogue like when YouTube got rid of him. I
Mhm.
would love to see the person because he's big. I see he had a YouTube come and speak Alex Jones and say Alex Jones, you have this opinion and this is why we don't think it should be allowed, and they bring up facts and evidence to him.
Right.
Should give examples. He could come and say, well, look, I didn't mean it in that way. I only meant to speak out on A, B, C, D. I didn't mean to cause
Mhm.
X, Y, Z. I don't mind
Mhm.
tailoring my content to avoid those negative actions occurring in the future.
Mhm.
No, if you give him that opportunity and he didn't change, well, that's we can have a debate on whether you should get rid of him or not. But I still don't think there was an open discussion with Alex Boy before he was shut down. But in all due respect, I don't like that. I don't like that clown, man. He's an actor in my opinion.
I don't like. I mean, I don't like his. I don't know him as a person. I might not like him as a person. I don't like his opinions or the things that he says. But I will say, you did say that there wasn't an open discussion. But do you know for a fact that YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, whoever, didn't go to Alex, you know, behind closed doors, essentially? It didn't have to be something that was on his show or on a public platform or on like a live stream. How do you know that YouTube didn't go to him and say, "Yo, you need to cut this out because what you're doing is actually going to bring harm to people."
I think obviously when you got what he said, she said, unfortunately,
Which is never going
which
to
is
be
never
the
gonna
real
be good,
story.
right? So he
Yeah.
obviously was saying, oh well, they took me off, they deplatformed me,
Yeah.
blah. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't know. I would love to think that
Mm-hmm.
that is what happened,
Mm-hmm.
but again, we are not too sure of that because I know there's some guys
Yeah.
who do speak out on certain things that happen, not just in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
but in other countries too. And I've seen their videos being taken down, and these are not some wacko. What's the guy name? They're not David Icke kind of people. They're people who have
Mm-hmm.
legitimate
Mm-hmm.
concerns that so certain things are done in the government. And
Right.
I've seen their videos being taken down, and they openly post the emails they receive from YouTube, and
Mm-hmm.
their videos. I've seen some of the videos, and those videos have not contained what they were taken down for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I kind of have a slight concern of how it's going right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope
Mm-hmm.
it's something that in the future more open dialogue can occur and it can be cleared up in the future. Because again, we do need people to speak, but
Of
at the
course.
same time, we don't want people inciting violence or trying to harm people or
Yeah.
smashing the CV vaccines in the ground. What's your opinion on those? Whether you believe in it or not, I don't believe you should. I saw a guy run
Mm-hmm.
up in a clinic screaming out and getting on like acting a fool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that behavior 100%. No, cut it out.
Right.
If you have a decent opinion, if you say, hey, look, I think, I don't really want to go down this COVID line anyhow, but that's an example that was fresh in my mind. If you
No, of course. Yeah.
if you don't, let's say for example, say, hey, I think these things were rushed out. Have that
Mm-hmm.
dialogue, but don't go in and stop another person who have done the research and they must come to the conclusion and say, you know what, I think it's fine to take it. Don't stop them from receiving the vaccine. That's my opinion.
Right, because you're about personal liberties. So it's same as someone feels like they should have the right not to take it, they shouldn't impose their opinion on someone who has the right to take it.
Yeah, I don't believe should.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a.
Imagine, oh, that same guy. Imagine if I came to him and told him, you have to take this. He's like,
Mhm.
no, man, and I shoved it in his arm. I don't think I'll have a head on my neck
That's
anymore.
assault.
So, you know what? Have the same feeling. If you want to speak
Yeah.
outside and say, guys, I don't think you should do it, that's your opinion. But don't go and
Mhm.
try to disturb people who did their research and made a decision to receive
Mhm.
it. That's just my opinion. If you disagree, go ahead. If you think you're talking crap, go ahead.
No. I don't think you're talking crap because I don't want to stray too far from the topic of censorship. But I was actually thinking about this earlier today. The idea of protesting and campaigning for certain, like I guess, changes, whether it be environmental reform, things like that. Basically, the idea that if you want something to change, be a voice to the greater social structure. So campaign for things, protest for things, but the problem a lot of people have with protesting things they don't like is that they get really antagonistic, and this can happen on either side of the argument, whether you are for or against something like environmental reform, regardless of where you're from. And people like everyone people will get very antagonistic and start attacking the other side. And to me, I believe you're not ever going to convince someone to at least understand it or to look at it from your perspective, even if they don't agree with it, if you're just making an enemy out of them. Because when you do that, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to get defensive, and then they're going to hunker down in their mindset, and then you two are just going to be fighting each other. And yes, there are some people who have their opinions, and they could range from questionable to understandably different to straight up, batshit. Don't know if I can curse on this podcast,
You
but
go ahead,
straight
man.
up just
I don't know curse policy, but
wacko.
I change it. I change my policy, man. What's we gotta say, man?
I mean, I'll still cut it down to a minimum. I know that I can get a little like sailorish, but straight up just like batshit out of there, and even harmful, hateful, destructive. So there's some people who can't, like, especially the ones who are entrenched in those really dark recesses. It's understandable that maybe you can't change their mind, but maybe the person who's perhaps on the fence of something like environmental reform or body autonomy in women, for example, if you spoke to them with some kind of understanding that the two of you are coming from a different position, like how you and I discuss things, perhaps you can get them to see, okay, maybe I didn't have it totally right. Maybe there is a benefit to things changing in this regard. Even if it doesn't directly benefit me, maybe I can see the value in it for the greater good. But like I said, I didn't want to stray too far from internet censorship, but it's all connected because you've got it. This internet censorship comes from when people don't like things people say. Going back to the fact that whether it's about a certain group of people, whether it's about a political standing, whether it's about an economic philosophy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, like I said, like we both said, it really should be handled on a case-by-case basis. But the issue with that is that that's not really efficient. So that's why in law, and you would know better than me in economics, things like precedent and previous examples occur. So you can look back on how things have been handled in the past to say, okay, well, that's how we should handle this situation because it's similar enough. But then that creates these blanket quote unquote solutions that can be harmful. And then, we just end up in a cycle of what is the right thing to do. And there are people smarter than us who have tried to figure this out and they haven't yet. So, well, smarter than me. I don't want to speak for you.
I mean, I think some are smarter than me too. I'm a very humble guy, so I'll say they're smarter than me. But
exactly.
Yeah, even with president, because you said even in certain economic theories, you check back through history of where one thing we have worked in 1940s, but then you tried it in 1980s and it's totally flopped due to different, social conditioning and stuff like that. So
exactly,
I do think we need more, at least a more how to put it to you, a more in case by case basis. But what the problem is, I think why we're not seeing that approach is timing, because it's easy for people to gather so quickly and then steer something on the internet. That I think that's why these things are done so quickly. But again, I like think the future is bright. Some people say I'm naive for having that opinion, but I just
not necessarily.
Yeah, I think it's bright. So hopefully as we go along,
it gets a little better because we get more informed about it as time goes on. So as we learn from these situations, and I just want to comment on what you said, how things happen immediately because we are more connected than ever. And people are now saying it's always bad news, but there's always been bad news. Just that when something happens, like a bomb goes off in Lebanon, we here in Barbados can hear about it immediately because we have the internet. So it's the world that we live in now that has just allowed us.
25 years ago, you probably heard it. You probably hear it like 2 days later, maybe on CNN.
And then you still wouldn't believe it because you still can't confirm it.
Yeah, or in the newspaper. Yeah. And then again, with modern technology, we're able to see people record videos live.
Exactly.
Back in 1995, what did you have? A few blokes had a camcorder walking around, but that was a very few people in the population.
That was a luxury.
Yeah. I remember my uncle had one. I was like, yo.
And even then, you're not getting that live. You got to wait for someone to send that into some international news room for them to show it. Maybe you'll catch it on CNN or something, or on CBC Evening News. But yeah, no one's live streaming these things happening, or no one was like they can now. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. All right, we're moving along here. We gotta talk about this guy, man. We gotta talk about
this guy,
Mr. Young Pharaoh.
What was his other name? Pharaoh Aten, I think is his
Peace family.
Other name.
It's Young Pharaoh. I can't do the voice. I thought I would, and then I still did it.
Anyway. Yeah. So Young Pharaoh, please get us started, King.
All right. Recently, Mr. Young Pharaoh was invited to CPAC, a conservative speech platform which has hosted many presidential hopefuls in the past, and which have also led to eventual winners such as Mr. Ronald Reagan and Mr. Donald J. Trump. Mr. Young Pharaoh was invited to CPAC to speak this year. However, before he was announced to come on, it was discovered he said some anti-Semitic tweets, and he was swiftly cut from the show. Now, Mr. Zacchariah.
Yes, sir.
Do you think the comments Young Pharaoh made, should he have been kicked off, or do you think they should have been worked around?
This kind of works beautifully into our last point, because that is exactly the example of harmful rhetoric that I think has no place in modern discourse. Because I don't have the tweet verbatim, I could pull it up, but in essence he said Judaism is not a real religion, in a nutshell, which is wrong, is false, and is harmful because it's minimizing the straight up existence of an entire group of people based on their faith. So, yes, that is an example of where they made the right choice to not have him on the platform. Having said that, I am actually looking at a list of who they would have had as speakers this year. Notably, he's not on it, so they do update their list. I am aware of some of these people. I'm aware of some of the opinions they have, not necessarily in terms of religious groups, but other things like gun control, body autonomy, women's rights, women's health, things like that, LGBT issues. And a lot of what they think, well, a lot of what they have said, a lot of what I'm aware that they've said has come off as questionable and I think abhorrent. So my thing is, my opinion, my very cursory opinion is they booked young Pharaoh. He had his slot whenever that may be. I don't know like how long CPAC runs. I think it's like a weekend long. They had gave him a slot on Sunday, I think. These tweets surfaced and they gave him the boot. My issue is that I believe they really only did that, one, because for lack of a better word to them, he was expendable. Because I think this came up when we were starting, why would they invite a guy like young Pharaoh? We were saying perhaps because he shares some of their opinions, but perhaps, in order to attract his audience, whatever that may be. So one, I think that maybe he wasn't as because regardless of what Donald J. Trump has tweeted, which he can no longer do, they weren't knocking him off the docket.
No,
They weren't knocking him off the schedule.
He
He
draws the
was their
attention.
star speaker.
He draws a crowd.
He draws a crowd, and he is more or less, even if no one wants to admit it, he is the leader of the GOP, the American Republican Party.
Yeah,
Even if no one in that party wants to outright say it, he basically said it in his speech.
They still follow what he does. So he is the leader of the party.
He is the leader in all essence. Ostensibly, he is the leader.
The black community, in terms of the current GOP's following, our base is rather small. So I just said maybe young Pharaoh was disposable because it's like, who was this guy? And to me, I don't think young Pharaoh is the GOP like CPAC type of dude. I don't want like sound like.
No, I mean, if it's something that you glean from it, it's understandable.
But look at young Pharaoh. Like he doesn't have that conservative look. He got the tattoos, the dreads, a t-shirt, chill laid back kind of guy. So I didn't even know he was invited. I was like, young Pharaoh. I mean, in recent times I've known him because I've not really watched a lot of his videos. I do go to see what he says from time to time.
Okay.
And what struck me funny a while back was young Pharaoh was kind of very anti-government. He was like, he think government causes a lot of problems in society. He believes, the Democrats and Republicans are the same. Two wings, same bird. So when and then I saw he was, I didn't watch it for 3 months, and then I saw he was talking about Donald Trump. I talking about how Trump, I can't know what policy it was exactly, but he said Trump did a policy and it was potentially very beneficial to black people. And if it was, it was. But he was like, Trump is doing stuff for us and not Joe Biden. So when I first heard it, I just thought, oh, maybe is that one policy he highlighted and he was finished. Then I started check back again, and he was doing a lot of pro-Republican videos. So I found it very strange that a man who was so anti-government switched. So I was wondering, did he mature? Did he have another point of view? But then someone did show me a video where he did say that white folks gave him money. So he switched up.
Keep going.
So this is something that, and it kind of ties back into the first topic we had. People, is it possible that people are given money to push certain agendas? Because we just think young Pharaoh is this dude on the internet, chilling, talking, having fun. But is it possible that people that we follow are being, paid to promote certain ideologies?
100%.
Very
Before you even finish your point, I'll say 100%, but continue. Sorry.
So I found it very strange that young Pharaoh was saying these things, number one. And number two, that is the guy you would have chosen. Because there are black conservatives out there, but they kind of have that, what we call that stereotypical look. You got guys
More
like
of a clean cut look to them.
right, like ABL. I can't stand that man. Larry Elder, Jackie Liz Peterson. There's the black conservative dude, and they kind
Hmm.
of have a very similar look. I was wondering, was Young Pharaoh given money to attract the other side of, can I say, Black America, which is a probably
Basically.
because Young Pharaoh, he does sound as a very educated, like he like we see the dreads, but if you hear him talk, he does sound like a very educated man.
Yeah.
So is him. So I wonder, was he selected to get that other side of Black America who is very intelligent,
Hmm.
but they may not conform with the traditional clean cut version of conservative politics.
I don't necessarily think it has to do anything like I understand the point you're making, but I'll start by saying I don't think it has to do with the aesthetic of it. I think it's more the principle of when you have conservative ideals, particularly if you are a religious person. Let's use the example as a black person, a black American. If you're particularly religious, or if you're spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
as a better word, because there's a difference between organized religion and being a spiritual person. But if you're a spiritual person and you are in the audience of this young pharaoh who by all appearances does have some kind of personal spiritual insight, you may not conform to the traditional idea of what a conservative is, but I think what's important about living in this modern day and age is that the idea of someone's appearance can mean so little now, because it's much like the discussion, and I won't go too much into it because it's something separate, but the discussion of gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
Someone might not look a certain part, but or they look like they fit in a certain role, whether it's gender or religious or what have you, but they fill that role nonetheless. It's about who the people are. So I think regardless of how we may or may not look, granted, a lot of people do think on that purely superficial level.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be absolutely right that he attracts a certain sect of Black Americans who may not have felt like they were included, because representation is so important. And this is a discussion we have both.
Kind of like an ABL. Like if you put ABL in front, like I don't want to speak for the average Black American, even though I'm one by technicality. I don't think he resonates with even someone who is very educated. I think
Okay.
someone like, I don't know if Young Pharaoh would fit that role either, but I think they're broadening the base. I think because Black conservatives have always been kind of in a very niche box. But some people say like the Uncle
They've
Tom.
basically been like token Black friends.
Right. And I think maybe including Young Pharaoh was to broaden that reach to say, hey, we just don't have the few little ones here. We have more of y'all. Come in and join. So I
Yeah.
feel that was like part of the plan. But unfortunately, it kind of backfired. But Young Pharaoh has always said some well stuff in the past. He said one time that what people have part like DNA and Black people are like only real.
That's a new one. That's a new one.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
got for the
cool.
video so you will finish. But Young Pharaoh
Please do.
he's
Yes.
always said
I need to
some well
laugh.
stuff. And he's debating a black dude named Black Dude who's like, I don't know what people you have seen in my life, but I've not seen that personally. So Young Pharaoh has always
Good
seen
grief.
some
What the hell?
he's always said some well stuff, but I mean,
So it really begs the question: did they do their research on him? Because like you're talking about attracting this group. Because as I was saying, you and I as Black people, and as Black people will say, representation matters. We want to see a reflection of us in media as a whole, or in the social structures around us. That's why representation in films and movie and in political systems is so important. So using people who are a part of his audience, maybe as an example, maybe the runners of CPAC thought, he may have a, a quasi conservative audience that pays attention to what he says. Let's bring him on to this platform, and they may draw their eyes to what we have to say, and they may agree enough to want to further associate themselves with our platform, with our organization, with our political party. But even if he doesn't have that clean cut idealistic look of what a conservative person is. You know, and this is, I guess this is new conservatism, new youthful conservatism. I don't want to say neoconservatism because that's a dedicated philosophy in and of its own. But you know, this is what the new conservative looks like. This is, you know, they want to say, hey, you know, this is America, and we acknowledge that, and he is an American, he's one of us, and we're the party of you people. You know, what do you mean you people? But we're the party of everyone. But as I was saying, did they even like do any research on his stuff before they thought, hey, let's get this one dude, this black guy who looks like he could draw in a further section of the conservative audience? Did they even think about looking back at his stuff, or is it really a case of, well, he's not that big of a creator, he's got like 50,000 Twitter followers, I think, and like
He does have a
uh
a large YouTube base. Though I think he has like 500 subs.
yeah, actually, yeah, I'm looking at his YouTube now, about 500,000 subs. So yeah, he's got,
He has a pretty good base.
granted, you know, in the wider reach, that's not saying much
But yeah,
when you see like creators with millions of subs. But yes, 500,000 subscribers, about 50,000 Twitter, Instagram followers. He's a big creator, but he's not world known. Like, this is the first I heard about him was when you brought him up. Like when you
right.
mentioned him, I was like, oh, I'd never heard this guy in my
He's not
life,
like a
but I'll
Steven
look him.
Crowder or like
Yeah,
a
like
Ben
I,
Shapiro
but
or
I
those
guess
kind of
that's
guys.
also because, you know, I would watch media that would comment on them. So it really is a matter of where our attention already is. I could have just easily come across him if the media I consume led me in that direction. So I won't necessarily. It's not an apples to apples kind of thing, but yeah, like did they even look at his old stuff? If it's as crazy as you're telling me and as crazy as you've just said, did they really look into it, or was it just a case of, well, we'll bring this guy. He said some crazy stuff, but let's hope that no one really paid so much attention to him that it's going to be a problem. Turns out somebody paid enough attention to him that it is a problem, and it cost him his spot.
What
So,
I thought happened, this is my humble belief, it could be totally wrong. I
mm,
believe they saw some of the crazy stuff, not all, and they were saying, because I mean, you got some crazy guys on the right anyhow, that
yeah.
he would just be chopped up with those guys, no one will focus on him, and he was come
Hmm.
in, he would talk, and if controversy does land, it'll probably land after he speaks. It'll be after he
Okay.
speaks, he will have spoken so well that we could say, hey, they're trying to attack our black brother, and
Hmm.
he could probably spin it off to say, hey, they're attacking a
Hmm.
black conservative. I think that's probably the original thought.
Okay.
So that's just my humble belief of what I think happened. But Young Ferris always said some well stuff back in the day. So that's why I told you when I heard he was even invited, I was like,
Hmm.
not just because he was like small, but he was well, relatively small compared to those other guys.
Right.
But when I heard it was like, Young Pharaoh, why would you invite Young Pharaoh to CPAC? Come on, young. I mean, if you want a black person that, I don't know if he's fully conservative, like
Hmm.
maybe like Hotep Jesus, he would have invited. I think even he said I would have gone.
Hmm.
So I was just like, why Young Pharaoh of all people? I
But
just
when you consider, we're talking about like fringe ideals in the Conservative Party. When you consider how accepted fringe ideals have become, because what when he's talking about concepts that are beyond the idea of conservatism as a political stance and going straight into the fringe. I keep using that word, but that's the best way to describe it, to the outer edge of what people believe now.
the
Because as I
pseudoscience.
was reading, when he was pulled from CPAC, as I was reading, he propagated a lot of the stuff about QAnon and Pizzagate, and there was another one that I heard. Oh, Frazzle Drip. I'd heard about that, but this is a lot of
Um,
stuff that a well-known U.S. representative, Miss or Mrs. I don't know, Taylor Greene, has herself propagated.
which is
So
true, right?
even if he's on the fringe of social thought in many cases, what really separates him from the GOP, as it maybe not as it is now, but as it is seemingly starting to become? When you've got these U.S. representatives and you've got these senators who are very much openly touting these crazy ideas that seem completely devoid of logic and of reason. So does he really seem that out of place when you look at it that way?
Well, true, but I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I didn't really know much about her until recently. But
Right.
I think maybe she could be young Pharaoh's white queen because she says some wild stuff also. So maybe I'm looking at it from the
Yeah,
wrong angle, but I want to pose a question.
sure.
Do you think is that young Pharaoh incited problems with the wrong group? Let's say he has said something wild about another group.
Like Muslims.
Yes. Do you think the backlash would have been severe? Do you think he would have been banned from
You know what's
CPAC?
really screwed up? I don't know. I genuinely don't know because, and here's the issue, that I understand, um, not just the GOP, but there is like a push for lack of a better way to put it, there's a push to to positively associate themselves with Jewish conservatives,
Yeah. Because Ben
and like
Shapiro
especially
is a
people who are
Jew.
pro-Israel.
Okay, Ben Shapiro is
I
Jewish, I believe.
I believe he is. So that is what he was saying attacks a group that they're actively trying to court. I can't think of any way in recent memory that the American Conservative Party or GOP or Republicans, whatever you want to describe them as, have ever tried to actively court persons of the Islamic faith. I can't in any regard because whenever there seems to be the opportunity, they would attack. They would treat them like terrorists. Like I remember.
With Nihal Omar, they've said a
Yeah,
lot of things.
well, she's a
I know
she's a
she's a
Democrat,
Democrat,
so that they have extra reason to attack her. But her faith
was a big
regularly
part of it.
becomes a subject of contention. Yes,
Remember
exactly, like
Barack
Ilhan
Obama
Omar.
got nominated, and they said we are putting a guy as president whose name is Hussein. And I was just like, oh well,
Yeah,
here we go. I mean,
and again, this could just be conservative Twitter, not necessarily the opinion of or at least the open opinion of people in political office. But when people say 9/11, never forget, and then we put her in office and there's a picture of Ilhan Omar, it's like I've never known them to defend or to try and do damage control on someone attacking people, Islamic persons. So genuinely, if he had said that Islam isn't a real faith, and he would put up $50,000 to debate the highest Muslim elder, I don't think. I genuinely don't know if he would have had any kind of backlash. Let's address that elephant in this room right now, though. The fact that he said he was going to put up $50,000 on himself to debate the highest Jewish rabbi.
there's
How
only
does he
one.
think this works? Huh?
There's only one Jew rabbi.
There's only one rabbi. There's only one branch of Judaism. There's one rabbi above all. I'm like, did he seriously not stop for a second and think? Let's picture religion as a concept. No matter what faith you subscribe to, it's probably an offshoot of something else in this modern day. If you are a Christian, you could be any one of dozens of sects of Christian. If you are a Muslim, you could be one of any. I don't know how many different denominations of Islam there are, but
I know the two primary ones, Shia and Sunni, but there could be more.
exactly, those are ones I'm aware of. I don't know any others, unfortunately. Or Rohingya, the ones in Myanmar, Uyghur, the Muslims in China. Those are, I assume, different denominations, or it could be a cultural thing.
I don't know if that's a cultural thing or if I don't know if that's a
I
different
think it's a
denomination or
cultural
if that's
thing. Like
a ethnic group. I'm not too sure.
that's true. I believe they are uniquely ethnic to their area, so I could be completely wrong.
Because they got the
But
Kurds,
with
but I'm
Buddhism,
too sure if the Kurds is like a different brand of Islam or if that's just like an ethnicity.
right, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. So he didn't think to stop and say, well, all these other religions have different denominations. Why should I think that there's one guy? I'm guessing he's thinking this one guy lives in Israel, in a palace in Israel. Why can't I debate this one dude and put $50,000 upon myself? But then again, now that I say it out loud, if he doesn't think Judaism is a real religion, then he probably didn't even think much beyond whatever craziness he decided to tweet. Because I read that and I genuinely laughed, because that is one of the most asinine things I've ever seen an adult person, and like I said, someone who seems like a very smart person, a very well-informed person in spiritual matters. He seems like a very smart person, and to say, but I guess we're all capable of saying stupid things.
Yeah, that's true.
And sometimes we don't stop before we say, like, I've said stupid things, I'm sure you have, and we're not idiots.
Yeah.
So
I think for they really need a edit button sometimes. Some dumb stuff they can say, oh should we yo.
I never learned how to think before I speak. I'm trying to learn how to do it now.
Yo, that was something well, yeah. I don't know,
Crazy.
man. Yo, young Pharaoh, man. But we getting on a lighter note. We
Of
can have a little
course.
laugh at this topic here.
Mhm.
All right. In a GQ interview, the head of PlayStation, Jim Ryan, or as people like to call him, Lion Ryan, I just love that nickname, announced that a whole slate of PlayStation games will be heading to the PC platform, starting with
Nice.
Days Gone. Some people in the PlayStation communities lauded it as a brilliant idea to expand the reach of PlayStation to those persons who may not have experienced the platform or who are not currently interested in playing on a console but would love to play the video games. And they said they could bring them into the PlayStation ecosystem. Some fans, however, said they don't think it's a great idea. They think that PlayStation may lose focus on trying to get the games to run well on PC rather than maximizing the console. Some fans are just fanboys and they lost their temper as usual over nothing.
Hmm.
So, me personally, I kind of saw this coming with
Hmm.
when Xbox did it, and it went pretty well for them. I know some guys in the PlayStation community were saying, "Well, yeah, Xbox did it because they weren't selling as well as PlayStation does," which is true. But you gotta understand, some people are not willing to buy a console. You got some guys, they got the PC master race guys, and in some countries, PC gaming is more preferred than console.
Hmm.
So I can understand, why they expanded. And as you currently see, there are a lot of their older titles
Yeah.
that they're putting on there. But
Hmm.
I can see why some fans are a little hesitant because they're like, I've got a PC, but then I went I bought the system just to play a couple of games. They kind of feel a little bit like maybe I should just save my money and just, stayed on PC fully.
Hmm.
Um, But I think with game development prices getting so high, I think what we're going to see is more and more ecosystems rather than just a straight up console. So I think in the future we will see more of like PlayStation will build the console. That'll be like the main hub. But then there are ways you can access the games maybe on PC, streaming. I'm not a fan of streaming, but it's getting better. You could probably have it on your mobile phone. You could probably access
Hmm.
PlayStation. Maybe I don't know if there's rumors that they will go back into the dedicated handheld market because they're
Handheld?
they're losing pretty badly in Japan to the
Wow.
Switch. I mean, I would love a handheld to return. So I don't know if they may find a way to strengthen the games to get them running on
Hmm.
the handheld. Obviously, handheld will have to come out years after the console to get the efficiencies up. But
Right.
I just think we are moving to more and more of an ecosystem. And I do
Hmm.
get it. I kind of old school. I do like buying the games and opening the case and smelling the plastic.
Hmm.
And I kind of hope those days will always stay with us. But I think we're going to more of such of a service-based model that I don't know how much longer those days are going to be with us. I think we're going to go into we have PlayStation now already, which I think will be improved. There's already talks of it will be improved during this generation. You see Game Pass on Xbox, which is a pretty good service as well. My nephew uses it and he told me he loves it. So I think we're going to go down more of an ecosystem model rather than just
Hmm.
a hardware-based model. But Zachariah, man, what's your opinion, man? Do you think is do you think do you think it's a good move by Sony, or you think that they're losing a bit of focus? Do you think they should know more, get the games running on the console, and stick to that, man? What's your thoughts?
I mean, I'll say yes to all. They should, because this really does reflect on something like the cyberpunk controversy at the end of last year, at the beginning of this year. I think first and foremost, regardless of what platform you want to put your game on, you have to make sure that you do it well. But again, this is another discussion for another time. But I think in general, yes, it's a good idea that PlayStation games are expanding to, I say other platforms, but it's really just PC. But PC is such a universally large platform
Mm-hmm.
that you can buy it from any number of online merchants, whether it's Steam,
Epic.
Epic Game Store, or GOG. I
Mm-hmm.
guess I don't know
I'm
if
not too sure if
GOG.
I'm not sure if their games are on GOG, but I'd love them to come to GOG.
It would be pretty cool. But let's say otherwise Steam and
Epic.
Epic. But yes, I think because as you're saying, it's getting harder and harder to justify a dedicated hardware space. And we saw that with the fact that with this generation, I believe for the first time, both Sony and Microsoft have released diskless versions of their consoles.
Yeah.
It's like you said, games are getting more expensive to develop. And they haven't gone up in price in what 30 years,
Well,
if not more.
well,
Games have basically been
when this generation, when this one and the Atari 360, it was 15 PS2
really.
era. It was 15 PS2 era. Well, all right. The pricing model is weird because I think it kind of went down with the PS1 because it was disc. It
Hmm.
didn't use cartridge,
Hmm.
so it went down to about $50. It went up in the Xbox 360, PS3 era to 60, and now you're
Hmm.
seeing some games at 70. And why I think the service-based model would work is how many
Hmm.
games can really sell at $70. I do think some. I think Grand Theft Auto that would sell. Unfortunately, Call of Duty will sell. Um, FIFA, Madden, 2K, they will
The
sell.
guaranteed sellers, no matter what. Every year they make out like gangbusters. They sell like hotcakes no matter what. $70 they
Right.
probably sell. You're saying,
But
yeah.
would I love this game? Maybe it could, but with Titanfall 3 sell at $70. I would love it to,
Ooh.
but I don't know.
You're going right at my heart
I
here.
know.
I would buy for 70, sure.
I was gonna call another
But
game, but that'd be too much of a dagger to your heart again. So I'm not gonna call that title.
yeah.
Um,
Fair enough.
let's say something like even you're saying with Returnal. It
Hmm.
looks good to me, but can
Hmm.
that sell at $70? I don't know. Ratchet
I
and,
don't know.
Ratchet and Clank looks good. I think 60, 70. People might be a little Ratchet. We love you. You know, V boy, you might want me to grow up with you, but I don't know at $70. So I do think we're going to see more of that service-based model of where the guys who may go and buy it day one 70. I think those guys will always exist. Then
Sure.
you're going to got the guys that
Depends
want
on the game. Like you're
right.
saying.
I just say it
Hmm.
does depend on the game again.
Hmm.
However, where something is more experimental, I think
Like an
service
indie title, more or less.
even
Something like a Senua.
even
Like, can the Senua sequel sell at 70, for example? The ones coming out
exactly
exclusively for Xbox. Hmm.
exactly.
Hmm.
He was seeing games like what's the game now? I was looking at like Scarlet Nexus, and it looks fun to me.
Hmm.
It's still reaching at $60, but imagine it trade at $70. I don't think it will move. Even look at the games that we love, even a game like Near Automata, which
Hmm.
everyone's played and loved it. Near
Hmm.
Automata didn't move that many units, and that was when games were 60. At 70
Right.
was someone take the risk. So I do think we're going to see more and more of that service-based model of where people are going to say, you know what? Because you're hearing it. Some people are like, yo, let come to Game Pass.
Hmm.
I bet you when we have these discussions where we say, I'll probably get when it comes to PlayStation Plus.
Hmm.
Even a game like Control.
Hmm.
Control, I always like how it looked. I didn't buy it because I think the frame rate, it wasn't, I'm not a PC guy, but I still like my games I play pretty smooth. I know on
Understandable.
PS4 it was a little janky, so I was like, oh, I'll probably wait. And it's on
Hmm.
PlayStation Plus, and I know people played it and say, hey, I really liked it. But when Control first came out, it did not move numbers.
Hmm.
And that was at $60. I think we are going, and I don't want this to happen. I think if all games go to 70, I think you're going to see a lot of people's studios shut down. The problem is, how do you make it for $50, $60 and sell enough to stay afloat?
I don't think you can.
And
I genuinely believe, like, I am a consumer, and not just I'm a consumer of media, not just games, but any kind of media. And as you know me, I like to support the publishers and creators and of these forms of media like music. I'm if it's something that's worth it to me, I'm willing to spend the money even if I can't do it right now. I believe if it's necessary for the survival of the industry and especially necessary for the survival of smaller, more or less independent studios, if the prices of video games as a whole, not saying they all have to go up to $70, but like as percentages of their current prices now, say if the price of video games goes up 10% across the board. So games that were not even a full 10%, but games that were $60 now will on average sell for 65. Games that would normally sell for $20 now sell for on average 22, $23. Like there is an incremental increase in the price of video games across the board, which I believe is also since a lot of these merchants and publishers are in constant communication, they could easily communicate these things to each other when the ones that aren't in competition with each other. I believe that the price of video games, whether you have digital or physical, because let's be honest, the price of physical manufacture at this point is negligible. I'm sure it costs pennies to create the cases, I'm sure it costs pennies to print the little sleeves. I'm sure
I
it
don't think
costs
it's a dollar.
pennies to print the
I don't even think it's
discs.
a dollar anymore. I think it's like it was like 50 cents or something for a case.
Literally cents.
Right. I think the most
Right. I'm
important
sure.
thing. I think most thing is like distribution. I think if you got so much channels now, you got even Amazon now. You could buy games off of there,
Right.
which is more cost effective for you. Anyhow,
Exactly.
yeah,
So things
Target,
like
those guys are
shipping
doing
and
shipping.
logistics.
Yeah, those things are kind of more affordable.
Hmm.
I think guys have looked at more AI-based engines, but then would
Hmm.
that yield the results that you want? And that's still in its infancy. So,
And AI based engines in terms of what? In terms of retail?
no, as in game creation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's thoughts of people trying to implement more AI-based help tools and engines to make game development faster. So
That's
instead,
interesting. That's not really something I'm very familiar with.
yeah, it is infancy. So instead of you, let's say it takes you 3 days to build a building,
Uh
because
huh.
all the textures you have to do, the LODs, they're trying to do stuff that where it might take you 3 hours with the help of AI. But with AI
Hmm.
now, how unique can you make it? And again, I'm put it into AI, but then I still have to go back in and touch it up over and over and over. It might still come back to 3 days if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Because AI in general is in such a rough state right now when it comes to the creation of subjective. Like if you can give an AI a blueprint to create something, whether it's code to replicate a certain piece of code or to operate robots on an assembly line to build a car. If you give them a rigid structure of something, then I'm sure they will go to town. They do go to town, and we have cars on the road that are built by robots.
mhm.
But something that is so subjective and so relative, like video game creation, because let's be honest, and this is my opinion, and if people share it or not, video games are art.
Thank you.
Whether you think something like Call of Duty is blindly churned out year by year, which it is, the FIFA series, this is just the same game with a different number every year, whatever you want to call it. I'll also take the same L about the WWE games. It's the same crap churned out every year. Thank God they took a break last year and put out something different. But you know, AI assist AI assistance in video game development, that would not be as straightforward, like you said, especially not right now. Than I can picture it being maybe 10 years, maybe even as far as 15 years in the future. Are there any games right now that you can think of that have been like maybe like small demos that have been developed with AI as an integral part of the process? Or
Well, No Man's Sky did have some form of AI creation, but we all know how that turned out at launch.
I don't.
It
I think that was less the issue of the AI and more the issue of just what the studio had to do
to
in
get
the
it right.
time that they had to do it, and then all the obstacles they had on the way.
Right, but what I'm trying to say, they did have AI implemented, but you saw it
Hmm.
still took the human touch to get it right.
Of course.
And
Hmm.
it took them a while to even rebuild their reputation from that game. No, it's a
Hmm.
game that's loved and lauded, but at the start, it was
Take note,
panned.
CDPR.
I mean, I know CDPR hurt my heart, man.
Take note, CDPR. I love you and I love Cyberpunk, but y'all screwed
I
up
know it
bad.
hurt my heart. I honestly, again, it's back to the money. I think you may
Hmm.
disagree with me. I think Cyberpunk should only come on next gen consoles and PC. And I
I
think
don't necessarily disagree.
I think they have such a big name after Witcher 3, it would be a nice
Hmm.
long burn. I think that was one of those games that, because Witcher 3 still sells to this day, and it still sells at
Yeah.
like good value, $30. It still
Hmm.
sells, and the game is like it's like 6 years old at this point,
2015, I think so. Yeah.
heading for 6 years old, and it still sells. I think Cyberpunk would be one of those games that would have sold well for 2 3 years
Hmm.
minimum. If it was,
Hmm.
man, like I don't want to talk about that, man.
Finished. If
Yeah.
it was finished. But
Honestly, I hope this is just one bad blip on their um, resume, and I hope from now on they can move forward.
yeah, no, no, no. Even I know you haven't played it. Well, let me not say no. You haven't played it beyond the
Extensively.
an introduction. Hmm?
But I mean, I played a little bit of it, and it's okay. But then I did see what you have sent me, and I did see the issues that has occurred within the game.
Right. I will say, like I said, I love it, but like we've had this conversation several times. When I saw that teaser 7 years ago, because it was no 8 years ago, because it was 2013. It was January 2013. I saw the teaser. When I saw that teaser 8 years ago, I knew whatever that game was going to be, I wanted to at least try it
Hmm.
because the genre, the aesthetic, the atmosphere, that is my jam. The cyberpunk genre is my jam.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got it, yes, there were a lot of things that were jarring and disappointing. I wouldn't go as far to say upsetting, but were frustrating. But the experience as a whole, the the game, the atmosphere, the experience that it gave me, I loved it. I would put it up there as one of my favorite games just based on all that. But I understand that why people would not only disagree with me, would say the complete opposite. But I can say that I'm absolutely looking forward to the finished Cyberpunk. It may not be what they had originally promised us, and I believe that's people's fault. I would keep saying this. People got on a hype train that had no brakes, and they were getting themselves excited for something that wasn't here yet.
We gotta talk about that
And
topic. We gotta talk about hyping games in another topic, another time.
right, another time. But
Yeah.
going back to the idea of Sony putting their games in a more
Finish up your cyberpunk talk. Finish up. We gotta say about cyberpunk, and
okay,
then we
okay,
can.
right, right. No, I was just saying that I'm looking forward to what it will eventually be. I know that CDPR had their issues with the hack earlier last month,
Yeah.
so we're expecting there was the delay that sorry, not delay, the update that was meant to come last month, the end of last month is actually going to come the end of this month. So I'm looking forward to what that may be. It probably won't fix anything. Sorry, let me rephrase that. It probably won't fix everything.
Right.
It'll probably fix a lot of the issues, or at least some of the issues. I'm going to try it again and see. And I'm being nothing but optimistic because I trust CDPR. I understand the snafu of you are still a company. You're still trying to make a profit.
Mm.
And in their efforts to make a profit, they hype the hell out of the game. They advertised it in any way they possibly could, and they talked up a lot more than their dev team could deliver, especially considering that almost all of last year they had to develop from home.
Yeah.
And that's when a
That's
lot
another
of the
thing too.
cleanup is
That's
done.
another thing too. Like I honestly
A
thought,
lot of the cleanup is done.
even with COVID, I thought they had the opportunity to come to people and said, look, we want to put the game now, but due to the situation, even if it said put it delay indefinitely, I think the people would have understood why, because it's such a large game. But I've also heard rumors. I don't know how true this is, that the funding was running out.
Oh,
So
I didn't hear that. I
I've
didn't
heard
know
a
that.
rumor. I heard a rumor from more than one person saying that the
Okay.
funding was looking a little funny. So they
Mm-hmm.
had to get something out because they have borrowed money from the government and all kind of stuff, and they had
Yeah.
to get it out. And I think unfortunately they bit off a bit too much of what what's correct saying? They bit off more than
A
they
bit
could
off more
chew.
than they could chew.
Yeah,
Right.
I think honestly that's what happened because it was really ambitious, and I think they maybe should have
100%.
probably eased into this genre. I think they should have built a good base, a nice solid first entry.
Mm-hmm.
You have two flagship franchises, and then go from there. But I think they try to set the next generation of RPGs without having the next gen development ready. Whether that's people, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
tooling, whether it's just
Mm-hmm.
time. I think they try to do too much. But
Yeah.
let's finish up on Sony, man, and then we can and then end the show. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I was just saying that, I like the idea of Sony spreading into a larger ecosystem of game distribution along with Microsoft, because like you were saying, Xbox did it eventually. I feel like they should have done it sooner because they are a Microsoft platform.
yeah, uh-huh.
I feel like Halo should have gone to PC.
Years
God
ago.
knows. Wait, no,
No,
Halo was on PC, wasn't it?
no, the first two, I think one and two were on PC.
Oh, okay,
And then,
okay.
but then Don
So
Master came
the
in and
Bungie
said,
developed ones were on PC, and then the 343 ones
no, no,
didn't immediately go there.
remember, Bungie did Halo 3 as well. And then I think
Okay.
Reach, because it was Don Master. He was like, yo, we got consoles to sell. We ain't putting this much on
Ah,
PC.
you see, money.
So that's how the whole
Like,
exclusive thing, because Sony always had exclusives, but Microsoft said, no, we need 360 to sell. We put
mhm.
this on the 360 only. Cause I remember there was a big backlash of Halo 3 not coming to PC. Cause I remember playing Halo 2 on PC. So
Right.
so I get why some PlayStation fans are kind of caught off guard because Microsoft or they always had their games on PC. I mean,
Mhm.
Sony did have games on PC, but it was more like online MMOs. Like it was EverQuest or Eve, which was Eve. I had one that was
I
online.
I know about both of those, yes.
Right. So, but as in like you're on
Like I know
chart.
nothing about them. I just know the names. I meant to say.
Which it was
Continue.
Sony. It was Sony Online Entertainment. I think that was the name of it.
Mhm. Okay.
Right. So those were the games that were online, but as in like your Jack and Daxters, your Gran Turismo,
Right.
your Horizons, they have never really seen the PlayStation platform. So I can get why some PlayStation fans are like, what's going on here? But
Yeah.
I just think we're moving from the traditional sell a box, then sell a game model,
The
and
insulated kind of
right to an ecosystem model.
model.
And I think PlayStation, I think Sony could do well on PC because PC gamers talk trash. They say, "Oh, those are those movie games," but what happened? Horizon Zero Dawn, they bought it up.
Exactly, it did
People
well because
love
it's a good
Sony.
game. Well, I haven't played it, but by all appearances, it's a
I,
very
I got a
I
disc.
should play.
I got a disc. If you want, you could come and borrow it. Sony, because they do make,
Nice.
they're very, very good at making games. And
They are.
and what
Rather, they're very good at giving the right studios the games to make.
and I
Because it's
think
not just Sony. They've got their studios that they publish for these. Sorry, they got these studios that they have developing these games that they then publish.
what I like about Sony is that they know how to give. They have good management. There was a
Hmm.
quote with the God of War, the new one. Whether you like it or
Hmm.
not, a lot of people love it. And they was going to put it out. And I think
Hmm.
it was his name was Shuhei Yoshida. He went to visit the game. He saw what it looked like.
Hmm.
He told the man, "Yo, put that back in the oven. This ain't good enough." He literally told him, "No, back in the oven. This is not good enough."
Like it wasn't finished yet to him.
No, to him, it was the gameplay wasn't solid enough. The story wasn't. Oh, it was all over the place. He said, "No, you're not putting this out. It's going back in the oven. Fix this, fix this, fix
Hmm.
this." And what happened? A bunch of
It's a
awards.
success.
Success. Horizon Zero Dawn was supposed to come out in 20. It was supposed to be like a shootout first.
Okay.
They said no. This is too similar to what we got back in the oven.
Hmm.
Not a success. And,
Nice.
there was before Ghost of Tsushima, Sucker Punch was supposed to put out a.
Please don't tell me another infamous.
No, it was a kind of a. It was a shooting. It was like a kind of shooting game, kind of third person.
Okay.
That got canned. They said it wasn't good enough, and we got Ghost
Hmm.
of Tsushima. So I think Sony has great management,
Hmm.
and I think those games. I think they will always sell. They'll always do well. Microsoft, I want Microsoft to do well, but I think they do need
Of
slightly
course,
better
I want all
management.
to succeed.
And competition is
But
good.
it is. I hate monopolizations, and I love healthy competition. I actually wish there were more big publishers. Sorry, more big platforms and more big publishers
I want
because
everything.
everything is under the umbrella of. Sorry, you're saying?
I want another big. I want. I said we go to ecosystem model, but I wouldn't mind if there was another console manufacturer that was really nice.
I
Because
think one more would be good because you don't want to spread the market
you
too
don't want too
thin as
thin,
well.
but I think one would be
Yeah.
good. Four choices would be good.
Yeah.
Because
Well, five if you want to include PC in there because it would be Sony,
PC
Nintendo.
is one thing as far as I'm concerned. I don't count PC as it.
Fair, fair. All right, so four quote unquote consoles plus PC.
Right. And
Right, but
they made EverQuest and Planet Side. I was trying to remember the games that Sony made on PC.
Okay. Because I was looking at EverQuest and EVE Online, but I didn't see anything about Sony, so I guess I wasn't looking deep enough.
Right.
But right, yeah, I was saying I wonder if it is something to do with the Japanese model of business, like how because it's what you when you were mentioning how Shuhei Yoshida went to the studio that did God of War. That was Sony Santa Monica, I believe. When he went there and said this game is not finished, I'm not satisfied. Put it back in the oven, finish it again. That sounded to me like a very Nintendo thing to happen, when someone would like go and say
Metroid Prime 4. Metroid Prime 4.
or a Zelda game. It's like is that really something that's a product of the Japanese or like someone like Shigeru Miyamoto? Like he would go and say, you're making a Zelda game. This is not what it's supposed to be. Start over, start from scratch. This is not correct. This is me paraphrasing an idea of when Miyamoto goes to someone and says, you're making this game, but I want you to do this right. Like how Nintendo will bring out a game more or less when it's done. I don't think there's ever really been a big issue of a Nintendo exclusive game being released and it feeling unfinished.
No.
Because Nintendo is very insular.
Yeah,
but
it might not be what you like. It might not be quote unquote
But it's
good,
what they
but it was
want,
always
and it works.
finished. It always works. And
it's always
I'm not
working
a big
as
fan of Nintendo, but what I've always said, their games have good gameplay.
yeah, they are the quintessential when you consider what video games are, especially when people have the idea of games are for kids. That is to me, in my almost 30 years of life, that is the image that Nintendo is the image they conjure when that is brought up. But I wonder if that's really a Japanese thing, though. Not to dismiss American corporate culture in the video game industry. But I really wonder if it's a Japanese thing because that sounded like something you'd hear at Nintendo. But maybe I'm simplifying
I
it.
mean, to be fair,
But
Japan gave us Ninja Gaiden 3, so I mean,
man, Team Ninja, they don't mess around. They gave us Neo as well, and I can't even get through that game. I love Neo, but I'm really bad at it. But
we got to do a hot game and put cheats on. I guess you're
but
really ready to finish.
yeah, but I guess I don't want to dredge on it too long, but yeah, no, I like the idea of a total ecosystem. I don't like the idea of console exclusives because I wanted to address this when you brought it up when you first mentioned it. People saying, "Oh, I bought the PlayStation, whether it's the PlayStation 5 or even earlier the PS4. I bought the PlayStation to play this game in particular or these games, but now they're coming to PC. I could have saved my money." That is the unfortunate price we pay for being consumers. You know, you buy a product for something, and as time goes on, that sub product may end up being available somewhere else. It's like if you're paying for a streaming service and you get Hulu for one of their Hulu exclusives. Granted, there's a difference between
I'm
paying,
off a subscription
say,
and buying a $500 box. So it's totally
it's
different.
true, but give it like a couple of years and then you're paying $500 for your subscription, especially with the way that they're piling up and you have different tiers now.
Yeah.
Like in the cost, and a console lasts what, 7 years? That, when you break it down, it
Yeah.
costs a lot less to buy a console, but that's neither here nor there. If you say you subscribe to Disney Plus for exclusives, and all of a sudden you find this is not going to happen because no way Disney is selling
Nah,
their
nah,
stuff.
nah.
But as an example, as a very loose example, all of a sudden you find that this exclusive you especially wanted has now on Netflix and it's now on Hulu. You're like, well, shoot, why'd I pay for this? And you could cancel it. You could sell your PlayStation. That's the price we pay being consumers. I think it's important to find, when this is just me personally, but I think it's important to find value in something beyond just one thing. But that's just how I look at it because
Yeah.
I have a PS4.
Yeah.
If all the games that I wanted, and if I had a capable PC, I could play on PC. Then I would use it as a media device. Maybe if I built a PC that doesn't have a Blu-ray drive, I can use the PS4 as a Blu-ray player. Maybe if I've got my PC hooked up to my monitor in my bedroom, I can put the PlayStation out in the living room and hook that up to the TV and use that as a media machine. Finding value in these things beyond just I want it for this one thing, because that goes into another subject of like rampant consumerism, which we can save for another time. But I like the idea of PlayStation and console manufacturers and publishers as a whole spreading their products across an ecosystem because, like you said, it creates healthy competition and it creates a cooperation that I think is better for everyone.
All right.
Because when you have people fighting over like, competition is good, but you can compete and still be working on a similar platform. Because then you've got people spreading their wallets thin, because some people will buy a PlayStation and an Xbox and a Nintendo Switch. That is $1,500 on these entertainment devices when you could maybe get everything on a PC and then put the other, well, which in itself may cost $1,000 if you want a capable PC, get the other $500 and maybe put that to something that you can find value in elsewhere.
Correct.
But that is another subject. That is just an offshoot of where this could go. But all in all, I like the idea. Like I said before, I think the price of games needs to go up. I think the value of games as a whole, not just in how they're being made, the scale of them, that is going up, but also games' value as a medium has gone up. And it's like the price of things has to go up. Inflation is a real thing. And the fact that it went down before going up honestly baffles me, but I understand why that happened, because when you told me it went down with the PlayStation 1 era, right?
Yeah, cartridges were cheap. This was cheaper than cartridges. So it was just like
This was cheaper than cartridges. And also remember the video game market was much smaller, and it was really the PlayStation 1 that helped, the PlayStation 1 and the N64 that helped bring the video game market back up. And then it exploded with the PS2 and the Xbox.
I mean, because look,
and
Sony's always done
GameCube
a lot.
was a part
Sony's
of
done
that.
a lot for gaming. So I people say
Really
Sony's
have.
gonna be done. I don't believe it. I just think, like, to me, I look at it as this. I think Sony's done all they could do on consoles, in my opinion. I think ecosystem is the next venture for Sony to conquer.
Games as a service.
Because look at it. So who the first console to do 100 million? PS1.
Was that not the PlayStation 2, if I'm correct?
PS1 was the first to do 100 million. In their first
Oh, okay.
100 million. First console.
Because I know the PS2 dominated like all consoles. Like
PS2
after it
dominated.
was finished, PS2 dominated everything, like every generation prior.
Yeah. Then PS2
Mm.
was a smash hit. PS3 was wonky
Mm.
at start, but at the end it did very well. You can't deny it. PS4 was a runaway success again. So
Yep.
I don't think PlayStation is done. I still think the PS5 is going to sell very well. I
Mm.
still think, even though they're going to more and more ecosystems, I still think
Mm.
Sony will be strategic. I still think they want you to buy the box.
Of course, still a business.
Yeah, so and I don't know how they would do it PlayStation Plus. I think maybe you'll get games. Maybe you could buy the game on PC, but then hey, PlayStation Plus, you get it. It's here on PlayStation Plus. If it's valuable enough to you, a bunch of games coming to PlayStation Plus, buy a
Right.
system. I think Sony's gonna be very strategic with it, and I still think Sony's gonna do 100 million again. I think they're gonna be four to 500 million again. You think Sony doing 100 million again, or you think this is the end for consoles?
I don't think it's the end for consoles, especially like you said, they're learning and they're growing. The only time that I believe signals an end for any kind of whether it's media or product is if they don't adapt. I mean, let's use the example of Kodak.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to hamstring digital cameras
Mm-hmm.
and they got completely bypassed. And Kodak as a company more or less died because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sony is smart and they're learning and they understand the value of something like games as a service,
Mm-hmm.
or understand the value of minimizing the physical footprint of your games or your gaming apparatus. They release, like I said, their digital only version.
Mm-hmm.
Xbox Series S is digital only, right?
Yeah.
Right. The Series S is digital only.
And they do give you
Uh,
choice. If you want a disc, the disc is still available. Which is
they
still
have a disc Series S. I thought only the
no, no, no,
Series X
no.
had a disc.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is you still have the choice to get the disc
Oh, to
version if
get
you
the
want.
Series X with a disc, right? Exactly. So
Because in some
that
countries, disc is still more popular than digital, for
yeah,
monetary
like you said,
reasons.
I like discs too. I love opening the case and smelling inside the case. You got that new disc smell and popping
Yeah,
it in. It's
yeah.
great. I hate that they basically gutted the game
Manuals?
manual. It's no
Oh
longer a
my
thing.
God, man! You
They just
got
murdered game manuals. Those
yeah,
were my favorite part. I would just read
exactly.
the hell out of those. But I like looking at the few games I have on disc. I like seeing the different games that I have. But
Mhm.
I haven't bought a game on disc in, I would say, at least 2 years.
Yeah.
All of the games that I bought recently, Cyberpunk, I got it digital.
Mhm.
Senua, I got it digital. It's just easier. But especially, it's also to do with where we live.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I'm
yeah.
not going into the
Hey,
places here and spending 180 local dollars, $200 on a game that costs 60 US.
all right.
But
My last quote tonight is fuck play.
mm.
Anyway, that's the end of
I
our,
agree.
our, our show tonight. Thanks for coming on, Mr.
Absolutely.
Zacchariah. We gotta have you back on
Thank
again.
you for having me. Thank you.
All right.
Absolutely. I would gladly come on again.
All right. And do you mind to plug your stuff again before the show is over?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Zacchariah. That's spelled Zachariah. I stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. You between 8 p.m. and midnight Atlantic. That'll be roughly around the same time Eastern. You could pop in. I normally play some Paladin, some Apex Legends. On Fridays I do solo streams. Right now I'm playing Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. So if you want to pop by and say hi, you know where to find me. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm a lot less active there, but as time goes on, I will like to be more active on Instagram. I am at Zacchariah _. So the name is spelled the same through all platforms: ZACCHARIAH. At Instagram, it's at Zacchariah _ and Twitter is just at Zacchariah. And then, like I said, I have a YouTube channel in progress. I hope to get my first video done within the next couple of weeks. So look forward to that. But
Don't
yes,
ever put
that's
time
everywhere
span
you
on
can
it. Don't
find
put
me.
time span on it. Don't ever put time span on it. It never happened.
That leads to disappointment. Well, it's too late. It's already in the air, so now I got to get it done.
All right. After the show is posted, guys, we obviously have it. Well, there are timestamps will be available. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll be back the following week with a returning guest. So look forward to that. And we're out.
Adios.
Nice drink.